Okay. We're so excited to be here today. We are so excited to be here today for our next fireside chat. And our fireside chat is with Bruce right here, nickname Bruce Wayne, because we have a couple
Tell
Bruce,
everybody.
but
Tell everybody.
Bruce, yes, Bruce Del Silva, and he's going to be going over Unleash Your Inner Zeus for social mindset, social awareness, intelligence, mindset, and dating. And we're so excited to have you here with us. And we would love for you to share a little bit about your journey, how you got into the work that you are doing now, and why you're passionate about this topic.
Yeah. First, thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It would also be great to see you guys' faces. I know if you're unable to, all good. Definitely feel free. In short, I grew up in New Jersey, family of four siblings, and my family's from Brazil. So we grew up in Jersey. For myself, I wanted to see the world. We didn't travel much. So then for college, I said, let me go a little far from home and let me challenge myself. Went to Florida for 4 years, had an excellent time. From there, I wanted a bit of a different speed. So then I decided to join the Peace Corps. For you guys who don't know what that is, it's a program created by JFK to send Americans to third world countries to help them develop through their economy, through developing their youth, health, and education. So I did that for a year in Morocco, learned the language, learned the culture, and I was working with youth, developing them. At a certain point, there I experienced the place I worked at, which is like a YMCA. In Arabic, it's called the Dar Shabab. Is when I was there ended up being a conflict between a student who was 15, a teacher who was 25, and the president of the Dar Shabab who was 45, 50. And they literally physically started fighting in front of the entire community. And it was such a shock that I said, all right, there's conflict here. What's going on? Why is this happening? So then I decided to then go ahead and I moved to Tel Aviv for a year, which is where I got my master's in conflict resolution and mediation to really understand what's happening. Why do we have conflict? How do we learn about ourselves? How do we connect with others? Of course, Tel Aviv, pretty solid place to learn it. As we all know, there's a lot of conflict there. From there, this was during COVID. I then moved to DC to become a mediator. That's what I was into. I was looking for work and it was really slow, especially with COVID going on. And as I was looking, I was trying different things within the mediator realm and conflict. And then I got a job with a political group, and I had to go through 7 interviews for this political group. It was really strenuous and difficult to do it, but then I got approved, I got accepted. And even though I got accepted, I felt a little uneasy with the political group I was going to be with. Not that there's anything wrong with them, just at the time the country is so divisive that I wanted to find a way to bring them together. So then through these challenges, I said, all right, let me go do something about personal development to see if this is the right fit for me. I then decided to go to a Tony Robbins 4 day personal development seminar in West Palm Beach, Florida. And when I went, totally shifted my mindset. And I realized that I didn't have to get into political work to actually help people and help them improve. And that what Tony was doing were things that I had already been doing for years without knowing it was a proper thing. So then from there, I literally called my boss before a week before I started, said, hey, thank you for the opportunity. I'm out. I did that. And then in DC, I started a really, really small coaching practice where I said, all right, I've already been helping people. And now why don't I actually just build it and expand? So from there, I did some mindset coaching. I did some social intelligence work, learning how people connect. And then through some personal experiences, I realized, all right, I'm not where I need to be in the dating world. How do I get better at that? So then I did a lot of the work. I had a coach work with me. And through my training, I said, all right, I'm going to become a life coach and I'm going to work with people to develop these areas of their social intelligence, their mindset, and how to date. They're really all kind of interlinked if you think about it, but they were separate at the time. And although I love DC, it wasn't the best market for me. And I wanted something that was more in alignment with my values and a place I really enjoyed, which was all the way across the country. So then, after turning 27, about a month later, I packed my car, drove all the way across the country. I see Val says DC dating is brutal. It truly is. Although there are studies that say it's the best city for dating, their argument was because of proximity and because of activity, but that's outlier, right? Correlation isn't causation. So then got to LA and really hit the ground running, joining communities like the Grateful Giraffes. There's some wellness communities here in Venice that I was able to become a part of. And that's when business really started to kick off. And from there, I just really noticed that there's such a gap that people really want to connect, but we're living on our phone. People really want to have a stronger mindset, but the past 2, 3 years have really destroyed us. And ultimately, is that people want to connect with others and also in a romantic way. And it's not really the person's fault that they're not connecting, they just don't really know how. So, from that and all these experiences and my own personal one, I said, all right, let me help people out with what I know I can do, with what I've worked on to improve. And since then, it's been a very powerful journey. And the secret to it is continuous learning. Because even on this call we're on right now, if you listen to it for 45 minutes, maybe you're doing something, you're not paying attention, maybe you are. One little sentence, one little nugget can feed you so much that that's going to be the catalyst for everything else you do. And that's it.
I love that journey. Thank you so much for sharing. And it is around connection and bridging people together and bringing people together. And I love that you've turned it from like mediation, conflict resolution to something that will actually like make a difference from a different angle and helping people connect not only to the other people, but probably themselves as well, too. I'd
Mm.
love
The
for you to
person,
share. Oh, go ahead.
the person you're dating before you date anybody else is yourself. Like even when I was single, people would say, "Oh, are you in a relationship?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I am." They go, "Really? Who is it?" "Oh, they're an incredible person." "Yeah, no, they're so thoughtful, they're so charming, so funny, so humble." And they said, "Really? Who are they?" I said, "It's me." And then they would laugh, but it's true, right? How do you pour into someone else's cup if yours is empty? And
Mm.
if you have a love relationship with yourself, you're coming from a place of giving as opposed to taking. And we'll get into that, but that's the paradigm that allows you to actually connect with people because you're looking now, how can this person fill me? But that I've done the work to fill myself up. Let me now sprinkle all my pixie dust everywhere I can.
I love that. I also like the analogy of like a champagne like tower. You pour at the top of the champagne, and that's how you give love. You overflow from a full cup versus like a depleted cup. So and you're not looking for somebody else. So I love what you just shared. I would love for you to go into, the process of really understanding social intelligence, and mindset and dating and how it all correlates together.
Yeah, definitely. So to supplement this, the name of the talk is Unleash Your Inner Zeus, right? And why is that important? I'm not sure if anyone here knows the story of Zeus, but in short, the myth goes that his father was worried that Zeus and his siblings were going to overthrow him. So what Zeus did is he ate Zeus's siblings and was going to eat Zeus, but Zeus's mother Rhea replaced Zeus with the rock. So then Kronos, Zeus's father, ate the rock, thinking the rock was Zeus. And then for Zeus's safety, Rhea sends Zeus to live with the common people, right? So then Zeus, of course, you guys know his story, he became the god of Mount Olympus. But the way he became that is he had to go through the trials and tribulations. And even though he knew who he was, he still had to become in order to get back to that spot. And then once he gets back to the top, he overthrows his dad's corrupt sort of leadership, and then he becomes the god of Mount Olympus. And how that correlates here is that for myself, I believe a lot of us didn't choose the circumstances we were born into. We didn't choose our gender. We didn't choose the country we were born into. We didn't choose the religion we subscribe to. We didn't choose our height, our physique, our smile, our fit, nothing. However, in us, we still have the potential to become Zeus-like. And if we work diligently, we can unleash that inner Zeus. Just to give you guys some of the back context. Now, the for social intelligence, just to really understand this, everyone knows about emotional intelligence. Now, with emotional intelligence, it's understanding people and really understanding yourself. Social intelligence is a bit different, right? If you guys know French, there's a saying that's called the faux pas. It's something you do that isn't necessarily appropriate to do, or it's not conducive in that moment. But that when you do it, you make this, what you think is a small mistake becomes a big mistake and actually interferes with your social relationships. A way to understand this is I'll give a quick story about this. I was living in DC about a year and a half ago. And when I was there, I basically was in my car late at night and someone tried to carjack me. I'll leave out all the other details, but someone tries to carjack me and I'm stuck. I can't go anywhere. And as soon as I see him, I try to move the car and he basically reaches into his pocket for a weapon. So, it's pretty intense. Wasn't a fan. When he reaches into his pocket with the weapon, he's course, trying to get the car. He's really desperate, whatever it is. And in that moment, I'm thinking, all right, if I try to leave, he may shoot or stab me. If I stay, he may shoot or stab me. But what's going to happen? So I thought, let me delay. And in that moment, I was dealing from a social perspective how to intelligently navigate that dynamic. So then what I did in that moment is he tried to take the car, and I told him, I said, look, man, even if you were to take the car right now, where are you going to go? There's no gas in the tank. You won't make it very far. And as I said that, I had my arm on the steering wheel so that I could block his view of the gas tank. So much so that he couldn't see it, but not too much so that he knew I was lying. And once he did that, he said, okay, man, whatever. I need everything in the car right now. So at that moment, he already capitulates. And I'm understanding these dynamics because I'm thinking, okay, what's the setting? What does he want? How do I learn how to navigate with this guy? And I tell him, I said, man, look, what are you going to want in the car? There's nothing here. Mind you, I had my phone, I had some documents out, some books. I think I had my laptop on the side. And then he goes, listen, man, I'm not leaving here until I get some money. I said, and at that moment, I literally didn't have any money, so I wasn't even lying. At that point, I said, listen, man, I would love to help you out right now financially. I really would. Personally, I can't. I don't have the means to do it. I understand you're very stressed. I've been there. You probably had a very long day. You're probably super stressed out. I've been there. I'd love to help you out. If you're looking for work, you're looking for a connection, looking for some groups to join, I'm more than happy to help you out with that. Let's talk about it. In that voice, I wasn't even panicked. Maybe internally I was panicked, but on the externally, I was super chill. And that guy, from basically going like this with his weapon, literally went like this. Because for the first time, that there's a lot of emotional intelligence there, but there's also the social intelligence just between me and him of learning what his needs were at that moment and learning how I can communicate with him to actually have him feel that his needs are being met. Right. So really the key of social intelligence is understanding before you're understood, knowing their needs, assessing the environment, listening actively, trying to even use some humor, finding a way to build a bridge with them, and then also understanding their belief system. What I understood just by assuming was that he probably lived in the inner city of DC, a place in DC. And because I know this area, because I studied, is impoverished, doesn't have a lot of social cohesion, typically doesn't have family units, lacks a compelling future. And with all that, is he someone who's probably going to be super happy, or more likely than not, be someone who's struggling quite a bit? So understanding these dynamics is something that can literally not just make your relationships and connections more fun and stronger, but can literally save your life if you're aware enough and if you pay attention to what their needs are and how to commute to them, that you're understanding what their needs are in that moment.
That's a crazy story, but very impressed with how you turned it around so quickly. I think a lot of people start to like freeze up as well too and not sure what to say. So how do you help people get aware of their social intelligence so that they can navigate these tough situations because it's really difficult in the moment?
Definitely a great question. So one thing that's also important is in that moment, I definitely was concerned. I wasn't happy. I wasn't saying, oh, could you stay here a little bit longer? Okay, maybe 2 more minutes. Let's talk about life. No, it was not a good time. I didn't want it to happen again. What I realized is, yeah, there's what is it? Fight, flight, or freeze, right? In that moment, I was kind of fighting, right? And a mix of fight and freeze. What I realized is that when people decide to learn something, it's probably because it's too late. I'll give a great example is someone I worked with, they had broken up with someone and they said, or someone broke up with them. That's okay. Now I really need to learn how to do this. And then I had handed them a book. They read a few pages and it said something so simple that could have saved their entire relationship. And the mistake is that people learn what to do after the damage has been done. So part of social intelligence is being aware of what to do before it happens. If you're going into an event, let's just say you're going and you're going to, let's say, an Indian wedding. That's a different environment for a lot of people. Why not go in and just do a very basic study of, okay, let me learn about Indian culture. Okay, let me learn a few phrases in Hindi, which is the predominant language in the northwest of India. Let me learn a few of the cultural cues so when I get there, I'm prepared. It's that saying that if you fail to prepare, you're preparing to fail. And when I work with people, it's helping them understand, look, assess where you're at right now, and could that experience have been better? Yeah, it definitely could have been worse, and it also could have been much better. Understanding where you're at and then seeing where you can go is what we call filling the gap, because without that gap, you don't really know that there's a lack in awareness. And this is something that helps, of course, not just in relationship, but if you're in a conflict like I was, if you're in a company. I mean, I talked to someone yesterday about this. They're in a consulting firm and I think they're HR. They weren't sure of how to communicate with someone. And what they don't realize is their inability to navigate that social dynamic is probably costing the company tens of thousands of dollars just because they don't have the ability to ask a clarifying question to have that person really communicate what their needs are. It's shifting from where we are into the other person's position and trying to get that opposite angle so we can see it from a different position. Like a great example, if you see the number six, it looks like a six to you, but if you flip it upside down, it's a nine. Now, it really comes down to what the perspective we have at the given moment that's going to dictate how we behave.
I love that. It is around shifting perspectives and really understanding somebody's needs and practicing that. How do you recommend people practice these social cues like beforehand? I know you mentioned like they can prepare with like, if they're going to like an Indian wedding and like have cultural awareness, but like, how do you practice this every day, or what kind of advice would you give somebody who wants to strengthen their social intelligence?
Okay, great question. So we all have guiding questions, right? A guiding question is a question we're always asking either consciously or subconsciously. And I actually learned this from Will Smith. Part of it was quite interesting before he did the slap, but either way, still really good. And the idea is that what is your guiding question in every moment of your life, but also every interaction? For example, I went to UPS yesterday to print a bunch of papers. And when I was there, my guiding question to the lady who was helping me, which it took about an hour and a half, it was a younger girl, maybe 25, and she's working UPS on a Tuesday afternoon. Maybe she wants to be there, maybe she doesn't, but it didn't seem from what I saw that she was super enthusiastic. And my guiding question in that moment was, how can I make this moment better? With that guiding question programmed in my mind, I decided to, okay, let me interact. Let me make things light. Let me make things fun. Because in my mind, that's how I make things better. So the way to improve in this social intelligence area is anytime you go into an interaction, what is your guiding question that's going to act as a catalyst that leads you to behave a certain way? A lot of people wait for life to happen to them, and that's fine. But if you go in with an intention, you're creating a different kind of frame that you're going to operate within. Really, in short, have a guiding question that's going to be empowering. And it doesn't have to be how can I make this moment better? It's how can I make the person feel more listened to? How can I make the conversation more dynamic? How can I be a better listener? If you ask yourself, how can I be a better listener? In that conversation, you're going to be asking questions more so that the other person can speak. And here's a social hack, and you guys can attest to this as well. Have you ever been in a conversation and then left that conversation and you think, wow, that person's so interesting. Oh my goodness. Oh my God. Really, what happened is that you were probably talking the entire time and they were listening. Because when we feel heard, we feel that really connected and we think, wow, the person's so interesting. Wait, they let me empty my tank. And then they didn't say much. Not that they're holding back, but they allowed me to speak. They gave me space. Wow, what's their deal? Huh? Because when we usually connect with someone, we're so focused on bringing myself to it or ourselves that we forget that there's someone else who, just like us, wants to be heard and wants to connect. So remember, the guiding question is going to influence not just how you always behave, but specifically in social interactions, what you're going to do, what you're going to say, and what you're going to think when you're speaking with this person.
That was really powerful. I never even thought of that before, like guiding questions and how you interact. It's bringing like consciousness to the conversation and like consciousness to the present moment versus I think everybody tries to think about what are they going to say next? What are they going to say next? And they miss whatever is in front of them to connect. And having the guiding questions, I feel like helps alleviate that. And another question I had was around like how do you get out of the mind then besides having guiding questions like and being fully present with the person, because it's one thing to like do it and it's another thing, or to understand that that's um part of the way that you can create space for people to be heard, but I think the monkey mind just keeps on going sometimes, and it's hard to have it be quiet when you're like, oh my gosh, I need to ask another question. I need to like look like I'm engaged or whatever it is. Like it just keeps on going. So how do you recommend staying present and in flow and in your heart and really present with the person?
Great question. A couple things that you can do there is what I do, and what I recommend is first to be very comfortable with silence. We always think we have to fill dead air, but it's not dead air. It's think about if you have ingredients in the fridge. The ingredients are dead, they're just waiting to be cooked. When the moment's right, they will then be cooked. Right? So being very comfortable with silence in that moment. If there's a pause, there's no need to jump in. The silence is totally fine. If you're silent for a few minutes, that's a different story, but 3, 5, 10 seconds, it's very, very different. And shifting that is understanding, am I focused on myself or am I focused on the other person? What I also try to do is in the beginning with connecting with someone, you get their name, say their name a few times in the beginning. Also ask them questions maybe about something about how they look. And then from there, you can get more of a roadmap as to continue the conversation and what to do. And on that, I do want to add some things on the presentation I have for you guys. We talk about social intelligence and a little bit about mindset. I'm assuming that some of the juice, which some of you came for, is probably for the dating element, right? I mean, raise your virtual hands if you guys are interested in dating, or your physical hand if you're on camera. Anybody? I see Minling wasn't shy about that. Okay, everyone. I would say, does everyone here want some love and romance? I think we all do to some capacity. We're social creatures, and it is in our nature. So after going through social intelligence, understanding that field, and mindset, which I will add one caveat to mindset. Along with mindset, it's have the frame of, instead of thinking, why is this happening to me? Think of, why is this happening for me? Right? It's a very simple shift in frame, but it's going to have you become more solution oriented as opposed to more problem oriented, right? It's how do you turn a crisis into an opportunity? Realizing that is a very big shift within the mindset. But to dating, in short, it goes like this. In modern dating world, things have changed really, really dramatically, right? So my parents, they're from Brazil, and they grew up 10-minute walk from one another. They went to the same church. They're about the same age range. Basically, their selection pool was very, very, very small. So then they didn't really have all this external competition. And the way that it's shifted now is that the world has become very flat. Not meaning that if you're on a boat, you're going to fall over into the abyss, but rather that the competition or the ability of different people who are interested is endless. So before, my dad would have to be, let's say, competing against the other guy in his village in Brazil, but now he would have to be competing against the guys who are living in New York, London, Toronto, Paris, LA. And what this does is it really creates a challenge in many different ways for women and many different ways for men. Right. So a lot of men, when they see this, they think they never measure up because, oh my God, how can I provide all these resources? I don't have everything that they have in Miami. They have all these toys. I have nothing like that. And a lot of women may actually struggle with it too because they say, oh my God, look at all these other beautiful women and they're so amazing and they're doing all these things. Right. This has created an unprecedented challenge because instead of having our peers be a little bit above us, in our mind, we're saying, wow, I mean, this person has everything. I have nothing. I just went out on 3 dates and they all went terribly. And all I see on social media is that they're connecting with other people. So how do we remedy this situation? What I'm proposing is understanding a few key elements, and one of them being something very fundamental, which is, as we are probably aware of, is polarity, right? You have a masculine and a feminine energy. Now, the difference, though, is that people think, especially if you're in a homosexual relationship, that doesn't apply, but it actually does. Because even in homosexual relationships, there's someone who has more masculine traits and tendencies, and someone who has more feminine traits and tendencies. The challenge becomes when you're not behaving within your natural energy. So I see this all the time with people I work with. Let's say it's a girl who's normally super feminine. She's dating a guy. There's a lot of stress, and what happens is that the girl becomes hyper masculine, and then the man, to capitulate, becomes hyper feminine. And because they're both out of their energy, there's actually conflict. And what's the worst is that when you guys have the same energy, you become what I like to call roommates. You may live together, you may see each other, but there's no passion. And people always ask me, Bruce, what makes relationships work? And I said, oh, it's very simple. What makes relationships work are things in common. What makes them romantic and passionate are differences. Tapping into this requires our conscientious effort of realizing, okay, am I more feminine, more masculine? That's the first job. And then after, when you're on dates with somebody and you're trying to meet someone, whichever energy you have, you got to think, how do I have this person feel more of their energy? So if you're with a guy, or let's say someone who's more masculine, you want to give them an opportunity to be more masculine. You want to ask them their guidance, their direction. You want to ask them for a suggestion. Let's say you're with them and then there's something on the top shelf up here and you can easily reach it. Here's the hack for you ladies. Just ask the guy, hey, sweetie, can you get that for me? He knows that you can do it, but guys want to feel useful because in society today, they do feel incredibly useless. A lot of guys, that I've worked with, they'll spend months without a single person even saying, hey, you look really good today. It's a very tough experience. And then on the flip side, gentlemen, for the ladies, give them the opportunity to be in their feminine, which is by you leading the process, having them act in a way that allows them to express themselves and how to protect themselves. Because as soon as you gain a woman's trust, they're able to open up to you. But if you don't, it's closed and there's no connection. And I'll break it down with two more points is, gentlemen, for the ladies, they're looking to feel, and I created an acronym for this, and I'll see if I can put it in the chat for everybody. The acronyms here are to feel sus and PPP. So sus is that women need to feel safe, understood, and seen. And I see Max's question, I'll get to it. So women need to feel safe, understood, and seen. Safe that you're not going to hurt them. Understood that you can actually emotionally connect with them. And seen is that you acknowledge their presence. For PPP, is that women need to feel provided for, protected for, and to feel your presence. Now, the provided doesn't mean you need to give them so many things in life, but you do need to have some ability to provide for their basic needs that they're going to have. Protect, of course, let's say if you and a lady are walking down the street, someone takes your bag, and you basically say, oh, honey, go grab your bag. That's not going to work out well. And then at the end, you have presence, is them feeling your presence, which, gentlemen, ladies know within 2-3 seconds if you are deviating from your presence with them. Even if you're looking at them, some guys just look and they're not really paying attention, but that deviation is what causes so much of the trouble. And before we get to Max's question, I want to share it from the gentleman's perspective. So ladies, this is at the root what men are looking for. And I created the acronym here. It's LARN. So in short, men are looking for a partner that is loyal, that is appreciative, that's super respectful, of course, and that's also nurturing, which is very feminine elements. I see all the time with people I used to work with that it'd be, let's say, a husband and a wife. It was these two were married, and the wife would actually criticize their husband in public at a public setting. And even if it's a little job, something like this, there's no way that you can do that is actually going to improve the quality of the relationship. So you can disagree, which is totally fine, but you can never disrespect. And they're two very, very different components. And lastly is in a relationship, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that it's somewhere that you go to get and extract. And like we talked about earlier, it's not. People ask all the time, hey, I gave them everything and they're still not with me. I don't know what's going on. You gave them everything except for what they needed. That's why they're no longer with you. And in reality, we're probably going there to get and extract as opposed to give. Relationship is somewhere you give to contribute, not somewhere you go to extract. And really shifting that frame gives you the chance to understand, okay, I'm going to give to this person, not because they're giving to me, but because I am a giver, I like to give. And of course, if they're not reciprocating down the road, that's fine. And it's not that you lost, it's that you now develop the habit of being a giver and someone who knows, hey, I'm someone who can give. If someone doesn't appreciate that, no worries. That they're not a bad person. It's probably just not the connection that we're looking for. Let me then go somewhere else. And then let's get to Max's question here. R is for respect. Yes, R is for respect, Shervin. Max is asking, N is for nurturing, right? So being nurturing, Shervin. So L is for loyalty, A is for appreciation, R is for respect, and N is for nurturing. Max is asking, can you elaborate on other ways in which one can act masculine or be in their masculine versus feminine? One of the real simplest ways is that I've noticed is, of course, you got to be on your purpose, on your mission. But if you have values, never capitulate on them to make someone happy. I'll give you an example. For myself, I'm on a vegan diet, right? That's how I live. I believe in the vegan lifestyle. And when I had gone on dates, the person I was with, we'd go out, we'd get food, and then there'd be a non-vegan option. And then they would say, "Oh, I'd want this." Say, I'm not gonna be able to get that for you. We're just gonna get the vegan stuff. And then some of them didn't like that. And I said, that's all good. Like, that's what I'm about. And I communicate that need. And then, funny enough, they actually said, okay. Because what happens in the masculine and women, the ladies here, you can attest to this, is that a lot of times women are going to test you to really make sure you're actually in your masculine frame. So if you say you're about something, and then a woman comes over and they really admire, wow, let's say Max, for example, wow, Max is really about that, huh? But is he really? Let me kind of test him. Let me see if he's really about that. And then if you capitulate, she just is going to think, wow, this guy had all these values. I come over and I'm able to persuade him and convince him from something he actually fundamentally believes is a core value. If he already capitulated to me, what's to say he's not going to capitulate in another setting when there's maybe a more favorable opportunity? Who's to say he won't leave me for that opportunity? So that's the core of it, is really staying in alignment with your values and acting on that. Because as soon as you deviate, you're demonstrating to other people, especially women, that you're not really a guy of integrity, your beliefs are super malleable, and you're not someone with conviction. And with a lack of conviction, you really tend to lack direction. And women tend to gravitate towards men who have a sense of direction, sense of purpose. And although we want them in our life, we want women in our life, we're on our purpose. And although women want men in their life, they have their values and their standards. They have their purpose as well. It's really understanding that very fundamental core that if we follow that, we understand that polarity is going to work. And anytime that you've seen a relationship start to crumble, it's most likely, it breaks down to three things. One of them is they believe it's one person versus the other, which never is. It's the two of them versus the conflict. It's the second one would be the needs aren't being met, which is quite to the base, but the needs aren't being met. And usually it's because people violate their values. And then the final one is that people are acting out of alignment with their core energy. If you're a masculine guy and you start getting super feminine, you probably attracted the woman to because you were super masculine, or very healthy masculine. And that's what kept her interested. But because you started to become less masculine and you started doubting yourself, she lost attraction because polarity wasn't there. And if you think of any electrical outlet, it's charged with a positive and negative charge that creates the ability for it to actually work. If you think of the Earth, you have the North and the South Pole, both opposite charges, which allow it to actually rotate because of that polarity. Keep that in mind, because it really comes down to polarity, never violating your values in order to meet your needs, because as soon as you do, the person you're with is going to lose ultimate respect for you that you probably won't be able to get back. And I could respond to this one by AJ, saying core values are everything. Know them, be them, live them. Alignment on core values is foundation for a healthy, mature relationship, 100%. Because as soon as you capitulate on your values and your standards, that person, even if, here's the thing, you may make them happy. Wow, they did something for me. Cool. But you're going to lose a lot of respect. And once you lose respect for someone, it's nearly impossible to still love them.
I love what you shared about polarities because it's such an important part of relationships and keeping that relationship spark as well. Because, like you said, you don't want to date somebody that's not in their polarity, especially when you came in a certain way. And I've definitely lost attraction to men when they become more feminine as well too. I was like, this is
Really?
not the person that I was attracted to in the first place. How do
It's,
you? Oh, go ahead.
I want to add something on that too. It's for men and women, a lot of times we pretend to be someone because we don't really want to show ourselves. We pretend to be someone in the beginning to attract. That's fine. It may work. Just the challenge is when you pretend to be someone in the beginning, what's actually going to happen is if that person rewards you for that behavior, you need to continue being that person who you really aren't in order to maintain that attraction. Because what's going to happen is, hey, this is who I am. Oh, I really like you. Later down the road, oh, I'm not really that person. Wait a second. So you lied to me? No, I just wanted to attract you. So you lied to me. No, no, I just didn't know if you'd like me for who I was. So you lied to me. And if you're building a house on cards, as we all know, it's going to fall.
Yeah, it's so true. I find that sometimes like you put your best foot forward or the person puts their best foot forward and then all of a sudden it changes and you're like, wait, what happened? Why did it change? And you don't really the other person doesn't really understand what happened and what went wrong. But what do you do when you notice this happening, like the polarity being off? Because I feel like not purposeful, like we were saying, in terms of like people changing their behavior to attract. But what if like something goes off and you did something that changed the polarity like unconsciously, like you kind of sabotaged it. How do you bring it back into polarity, or what would you recommend people do to bring it back into a space where they are back into their natural state?
Yeah, getting out of the polarity and out of your natural state is definitely very difficult. And it makes sense. Look, if you're someone who's super feminine and then life is getting very, very challenging, no one blames you for getting into your masculine. But as partners and people looking to have a partner, the responsibility on showing up is on us, not on somebody else, right? They can compliment, but we had to come from a place of, hey, we are here, we are ready to give, right? So if you're, let's say you're operating more in the masculine realm, yeah, then if you feel you're losing that, go back to the drawing boards, do things that make you feel masculine, and really understand, hey, this person was attracted to me because I was in my masculine. And also, I'm able to live in better alignment with myself because I'm in my masculine. Same with feminine. If you're feeling, let's say, super stressed, work is crazy, kids are nuts, whatever is going on. If you're in your feminine and you're transitioning to becoming hyper masculine, slow down, realize, am I tending to my own garden? Am I watering my own plants? Is my soil fertile? Am I getting the sunlight I need? Because work, life, all these challenges that we can influence, but we can't always control, really find a way to shift our energies if they're not rock solid. At the core of it is do things that bring you back into that energy and realize that you're in a place to give and trust yourself. You've been that masculine or feminine before, you can easily do it again. But until you take care of yourself and you have that base, you're probably going to have a lot of trouble being able to give it out to others.
I love that. It goes back to like the self-care and like self-awareness and really tuning back into your core and slowing down the process and not letting life just kind of take you away from like who you are. I would love to go into a little bit about self-love. We talked a little bit about this earlier, and that you are your best relationship. And I know you touched on it, doing things that like fill your cup and all that stuff. But like, how would you recommend somebody who is in this dating realm and trying to date, like to fill their own cup? Because sometimes they're so attached to the outcome or wanting to find the guy or girl, their partner, their next partner, that they forget about themselves. So, how
Mm.
do you recommend people staying in their own center and their own core as they date versus projecting out their I guess, desires onto other people and their expectations onto other people?
Okay. Middling with powerful, powerful A level 1 questions, very, very powerful. Yeah, in short, I'll say what worked for myself and people I've worked with is be a, it's really important to understand the environment you're going in, right? So I'll just speak to the dating element. If you're looking, like, think about any partner you've ever had. It's most likely that you probably didn't meet your partner in a co-working space where you couldn't mingle and talk to each other. A lot of times the environment is conducive to facilitating the creation of a relationship. Meaning, if let's say if you met your partner, you normally maybe met them at the beach and it was a fun day, there's music, games, you guys are doing your thing, you're already way more relaxed and you're probably not going there to find, you're probably going there to fill yourself up. By doing that through not necessarily accident, but in that moment, you're actually creating opportunity because you are your full best self. And then that actually attracts people to you. If you're in a co-working space, not that there's anything wrong with it, it's totally fine, but your ability to communicate with someone in that space is going to be very, very different based on the conditions. It's more of a professional environment. Some things you may say in a professional environment probably aren't as smooth as some of you would say in, let's say, a beach environment, at the gym, at a club environment, at a lounge, at a bar, on a hike, on a park. When you do activities that fill yourself up, you're going to be in your best state. And I would say that's what worked with me is when you're in that setting, when you're in that state, you're actually attracting more because that's when you're your full self, when you're more expansive. Think about it. Even the most bubbly person at the DMV, they're probably not cool. They're probably bummed. Right. So really the environment is crucial for us to understand that because that's what's feeding us more than almost anything. Our thoughts feed us all the time. And really a lot of us live in hypnosis because we're constantly hypnotizing ourselves with the stories we tell ourselves. That's part of it. This is the inner game, but we have influence to some capacity on the external game and how we set up where we're at. Being conscious of this allows you to say, okay, what can I control? What can I control? Am I able to feed myself well? Am I able to get enough rest? Am I connecting with people who actually care about me? A lot of people, this is really sad, is the expression I say is that people will violate their values in order to meet their needs. Meaning that people are so, like the needs we have are for certainty, variety, love, significance, contribution, and growth. Those are 6 human needs. A lot of people are so desperate for love and connection. That's the need that's so big for them that they'll violate their values, meaning if they're against someone who's, let's say, violent towards other people, let's just say. But if that person is showing them attention, because they have that need that needs to be fulfilled so badly, and because they're not getting it anywhere else, they're going to settle in that moment for the person who can give them that need, even though it compromises their values. So get super clear on your values, put yourself in environments where you can nurture yourself the most, because by doing those two, having your values and environment, you're then able to cultivate someone being pulled in. Because what happens in that moment is you become a magnet that attracts as opposed to a force that's going to be pushing. And push can only go so far. You basically wear out. But like gravity, the pull and that magnetic force is always going to bring them back in.
I love that. It's really just focusing on what's filling yourself up and not focusing on the external. And if you stay inside of yourself and like what makes you excited, and you don't have to like fill it up with anybody else, and your needs are already met. So I love that analogy. Now, I'm going to come back to Danny's question in a moment. I just want to have a little follow-up question to what you just shared, because I feel like sometimes it's easy when there's no pressure to like perform and you're just in your own environment and you're like just natural. But as soon as like you start to like somebody, I know this happens to me, so this could be a little personal question, like your demeanor shifts or people's demeanor shifts, in terms of like, and then they become a little bit more attached, and then they are projecting out a little bit more onto the other person. How do you recommend people staying within themselves? And is there kind of like belief systems that you can instill in yourself to reinforce that energy of, whatever it is, your natural state, the playfulness or whatever is that attracted somebody to you versus
Mm.
the pressure of the situation? Does that make sense?
3 points on that. First, I'd say good. Feel those feelings. That's very good. Awesome. Congratulations. Second, the only thing we lose in life is the love we fail to give. If you guys want to write that down, I heard that the other day. I thought it was very good. The only thing we lose in life is the love we fail to give. And how this comes into the next point is this sounds like what's called attachment theory, attachment styles, which are really broken down into 3 simple ones, that there's the anxious, there's the avoidant, and then there's the secure. When you meet someone new, you may get super excited. Oh my God, I'm gonna keep being this person. Wait a second. Hold on, let me slow down. But then on the opposite, maybe someone shows a lot of affection towards you. Whoa, whoa, I don't like this either. Right? A solid way to exemplify this idea is think of a squid and think of an octopus rather, and a turtle. So we have an octopus here and we have a turtle. We'll do it like that. The octopus is going to be represented as the anxious, and the turtle is going to be the avoidant. So as the octopus looks to connect, the turtle's like this, but then if you get too close to a turtle, as I'm sure we all have, the turtle tends to come back in, avoidant. And as soon as the turtle comes in, what do most anxious styles do? They just keep getting closer and closer, and then the turtle just keeps retreating. But it's learning that balance, right? The anxious only keeps going because the avoidant hasn't actually given any because they want to avoid. And same with the opposite. If the turtle understands that the anxious is continuously going towards them because they don't want to open up or they don't feel comfortable, creates conflict for both. What's helpful is understanding your attachment style and just really navigating, okay, so this is something that happens. I meet someone, they're super funny, and now I change into this. It's not that I'm changing, but now I become a little more extreme. How do I understand what my needs are? And it's all our frame. If the frame is, oh, I'm getting so creepy, I'm being too much, yeah, then that's who you are. If your frame is, yeah, I'm really interested, I really would love to see where this goes, but I understand everyone needs their space. It's that conversation we have with ourselves that helps create the frame as how we need to navigate those moments. Because they're always going to happen. And if we feel that we're losing ourselves, it's because we're also visualizing in our mind what this person is and we're kind of idolizing them. The challenge is when we idolize someone. Think about most of us are in LA. I know we have someone from Miami on the call. Shmosh is over there. When we treat someone like a celebrity, they have no choice but to treat us in a way like a fan. Even if they're super polite and we're all cool, the way we came up to them, it was, a lot of people are hysteric and they're freaking out. It's very uncomfortable for the celebrity. But if we humanize the person we want to connect with, which, guys, we can do it right now. Every person you've been super attracted to, when they wake up, they put their pants on through the left leg and right leg, just like you. They use the bathroom just like you did yesterday, today, or are going to do today. They have similar fears. They have similar wants. When we begin to humanize people, we minimize the idolization of them in our eyes, which then fosters the chance for relationship to occur. Because relationship is relation in a ship together. If you guys are in a ship together, you're in a relation, then that's a relationship. But otherwise, you're just having someone lead and you're just following and you're not really sure where things are going because you're so focused on idolizing that person and also focused on yourself. So in short, understand the attachment style. Don't idolize the person and understand that the only thing you lose in life is the love you fail to give.
Those are great tips, and attachment styles are huge. So definitely learned that because it's shifted how I view myself, and like you become more conscious in dating as well. So know your patterns.
Life changing.
Yes, life changing.
Really, it is.
We have a couple questions. Danny asks, on the women's side, from your perspective, how do you navigate being with a man who is more sensitive and vulnerable that seems to be less masculine according to the typical definition?
Mm. So this is a great question because we're saying first we're operating off definitions. So there's a typical definition. So we can define things certain ways, but even with the definitions, like let's say someone says, "Oh, the sky is red." You know it's not red, but if people agree with it, you're still not going to believe it because you know fundamentally that's not the reality, right? So the typical definition of the masculine element is one way, but I mean, ladies, correct me if you believe I'm mistaken, is in your gut when you've really been super attracted to a guy, you probably felt that he was in his masculine in a very healthy way, and that allowed and gave you space to be feminine. So in this specific case, navigating being with a man who's more sensitive and vulnerable, that seems to be less masculine. There's a lot of assumptions here. One thing that's helpful to understand is how have you seen him in moments where he has the opportunity to be masculine? And then also the behavior that we want repeated, we should reward. If he does something that's masculine, say, "Oh my God, honey, you're so sweet. Wow, you're so strong. Oof, my goodness. Have you been working out? Wow, you're so brave. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be with you. Oh, you make me feel like a princess." Whatever it is, really reinforcing that is going to create in your partner a sense of, wow, this girl's really feminine. I gotta step up. Like I'm the masculine guy here. Yeah, I gotta step up. In short, reward the behavior that you want repeated and help facilitate opportunities for him to be that. Because deep down, every guy has that really strong masculine imperative, but society has in a way twisted and turned it that has said to a guy, hey, to be loved and accepted, you should be very weak. You shouldn't have opinions. If you do anything that's counter the norm, then you're going to get in trouble. You're going to lose your job. You're going to get canceled. Nobody's going to like you. Some people may not like you. Sure. But the people who are in alignment with your values are going to stick with you. And it's very difficult. I'm sure you guys can attest to this, that there's someone out there you probably don't even like, but you at least respect them because they have values. And of course, their values aren't hurting people, sure, but you really respect them saying, you know what, I don't like this guy's character, but he has integrity. she has integrity. They say something that they believe, they do it. Okay, this is someone I can at least respect, right? Respect is really a prerequisite for a lot of connection, because if you don't sense that this person respects themselves, how is it possible that they're going to even respect you in turn? Not really so likely. And then Minley, we can get to AJ's question.
Yeah, I'm about to share it. So how do you navigate keeping separate space, autonomy, sorry, and independence while navigating or while in a relationship? How do you communicate it? And how do you both be independent but also nurturing at the same time?
Really solid question, AJ. So there's a really powerful book that I read years ago. It was part of my master's program for conflict. I had got my master's in conflict resolution and mediation. And one of the books that was recommended, but no one read, surprisingly, I thought it was a big mistake, is a book called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall B. Rosenberg. A very, very powerful book. I use that book. I use it in relationships, when I'm speaking with friends, when my guy carjacked me. And what that book gets to at its core is there's a framework that it talks about called, I'll write it down here so you guys have it, OFNR. And this is a very powerful way to communicate your needs in any given moment. And it breaks down like this. O is for observation, F is for feel, and need is for request, or N is for need, and R is for request. Meaning, a lot of times when we speak to someone, let's say in this specific example, is, hey, I need my own space because you're really on me all the time. And look, I like you, but I really need the space. Like, I need my boundaries. I want to still love you, support you. Okay, that's one way to do it. An opposite with OFNR would be, hey, I noticed when blank, 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 it made me feel this way. What I need is this. Would you be willing to blank? You fill it in. Observing is powerful because it's objective. You're not saying subjective. Hey, I noticed the phone was placed on the table. That's objective. Hey, it made me feel, not you. It made me feel that scenario, because when we say you, we're already attributing blame. When we say it becomes a little more separate, a little more distant, right? So observe what happened. It made me feel what I need. Would you be willing to? And they're going to think, wait, okay, AJ. So AJ said, yeah, so she noticed this. Wow, it made her feel this way. It wasn't me that made her feel that. It made her feel that way. What she needs is this. And would I be willing to? Yeah. AJ was already super vulnerable with me. She communicated with me her needs. She didn't make me feel attacked. I know she loves me. Yeah, I'm more willing to do this. Let me at least entertain this, and let me do what I can to help AJ have her needs be met. That's a very simple framework that I really would encompass all of that, because what it does is you're seeing the other person, you're not seeing them as the challenge, right? Again, guys, remember, it's not, let's say, AJ versus whoever she's talking about. They're not butting heads. It's AJ and the person she's talking about together, and they're competing against loneliness and ignorance and miscommunication. That's their opponent. If they work together, they can win, and they both benefit. But if they work against each other without that framework, nobody's going to win.
That's such great advice. It's taking the blame out of everything and not blaming the other person, really taking responsibility for our own feelings and like our own request of like what we need, because people are not mind readers as well too. If we don't share what we need and in a way that they can hear it, um, then it doesn't work out. So I love that framework. Um, and we're getting towards the end. I would love for you to share any like last words of wisdom or like key takeaways that you want people to leave with, or actionable items that you want people to take away with for their dating lives, and really understanding how to move forward in creating a really healthy relationship.
Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, I wish we had like hours we can talk about this. It goes into dating and also with mindset and social intelligence as well. A few things, right? So, if you really, what happens when when you go to catch a butterfly? You guys have probably heard this quote: when you go to chase a butterfly, they go away. So a lot of people, that's what they're doing. They see beauty, which butterflies are beautiful. They chase this beautiful butterfly, but they never catch the butterfly. And honestly, even if they catch a butterfly, why are you catching a butterfly? A butterfly is supposed to be free, supposed to be enjoying. Instead, the secret is to cultivate your own garden, and you create such a beautiful garden that through that the butterfly comes to you. A lot of what we're looking for is external. And yes, people can compliment us, make our lives awesome and great for sure. Life is very challenging because there's so many distractions. We have our phones, so many things are going on, and we have temporary escapes. You can go on social media and you could, instead of actually going for a relationship, going for a connection with people, you just go on your phone and you have these artificial relationships, right? What's called the fast food of connection. When you do that, you're chasing something. And if you're chasing, you're already convincing yourself that you have a lack thereof of something that you have within you. Of course, it's not just you have it, you need to cultivate it, cultivate the garden. And then I'll leave with one final point here, unless there's any closing questions, is a quote I love that's attributed to the statue of David. So I'm sure we all know there's a beautiful statue of David. I think it's in Florence, somewhere in Italy, created by Michelangelo and the Renaissance. And it's a beautiful statue. And people go to, there was a sculptor who went to Michelangelo when he finished creating it. And the sculptor asked, wow, Michelangelo, this is an incredible work of art you just made. How'd you do it? And his answer for me is one of my favorite responses I've ever heard. He goes, I saw the angel in the marble and I carved until I set them free. It's amazing. It's similar to the Zeus story that within that marble was David, right? But you needed the sculptor. You understood that there was a substance within. And for me, that's so analogous to what we're doing in our lives, that we are in that marble, that we're fixed, but if we continuously sculpt and continue to work diligently on ourselves, we can then free the angel inside. And the marble is really a way is a metaphor for, let's say, insecurity, is a way for lack of sense of self-worth. That's the marble. But if you diligently carve away at these lies, I think they're lies, right? It's their fears, which is really false evidence appearing real in our minds. That's the acronym. If we continue to chisel away with that and sculpt at it, we can then have the beautiful angel inside be free. But until we recognize that we have the angel inside, that we have the ability to sculpt, and that it takes time and work, and that there's all these challenges, we never can free that angel. But when we do become aware and we work diligently and we have the tools, we can do it. And then the actionable tip to end that, aside from that quote, is very, very simply to ask better questions and to tell better stories. Those are very, very key things you can do right after this call that is going to improve the quality of your life immediately. Ask a better question. If you're in a relationship, if you ask yourself, is this the beginning or is this the end? It's going to dictate how you behave. If you're in a relationship and, in the beginning, your partner says, hey, sweetie, can you take out the trash? What would you say? Oh, of course, sweet. Of course, I'll take out the trash. No problem. Okay, all good. But if you believe it's the end and your partner says, hey, sweetie, can you take out the trash? You're going to say, what am I, your janitor? Take it out yourself, because you already started devaluing that person. That's for asking better questions. And then telling better stories is, what's the story you're going to tell within this relationship, within your communications with people, within yourself? Something challenging happens in your life. Wow, is it all over or is it just beginning? That saying of when one door closes, another one opens. That's a story. All these metaphors and sayings are all stories that we can choose to believe in. And the question I have for you guys and the challenge is, are you going to continue believing disempowering stories? Or are you going to choose to accept and believe in empowering stories that's going to help facilitate and create the life that you actually can create, that can then free the angel within the marble to then be free?
Wow, that's a powerful summary right there. And I love the analogy of the angel. It's all within us already. We have all the capabilities within us. We just get to set ourselves free with, like you said, better questions, better beliefs, better thoughts, and the true us gets to come out. Thank you so much for this incredible talk. I know a lot of people got a lot of value out of this, and I'm sure people watching the replay will get tons of value. And if you want to connect with Bruce, he's in our WhatsApp chat. If you have further questions, and we just want to thank you for being on and sharing, yeah, all the tips and tools. And I definitely have some nuggets that I'm mentally jotting down, and I have to write down as well too. So
As
thank you so much for being here.
100%, an absolute a pleasure. Guys, you don't need to wait for things to change. And there's a lot of these sayings and ideas, but really just think, if you ask a more empowering question, what could be the answer you get? If you
Sure.
tell yourself a better story, divorce the story that didn't serve you and remarry the truth. Really, it's powerful sayings, but if applied and really used, the fruition comes and the angel gets free.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much again. Thank you everyone for attending, and
Guys,
we
appreciate it.
will see you next
Thank
time.
you, guys.
Thanks for
Bye.
coming. Thanks for coming, everybody. Enjoy. Enjoy.